The bomb exploded in the middle of the subway tunnel. The transit authority expected their veteran operator of 25 years, Robert Chen, to simply move the train to a safe distance. But Robert didn't stop there. He went down into the tunnel, triaged the wounded, examined the bomb fragments, and managed the entire operation until police arrived. Only one question ran through the police commander's mind. What kind of training has this man received? Welcome to Hidden Warriors. Before we begin this intense story of hidden expertise and unexpected leadership, tell me in the comments which country you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us honor the skilled warriors hiding in plain sight. The New York City subway never sleeps. In the controlled chaos of rush hour, the operators become invisible, trusted to move millions safely through underground arteries carved from Manhattan bedrock. Robert Chen had been invisible for exactly 25 years. Every morning at 5:47 a.m., he arrived at Union Square Station, signed in, and took control of the northbound 6 train. Same route, same announcements, same rhythm that had defined his life since 1998. At 62, Robert moved with deliberate economy, pressed uniform, trimmed silver hair, spotless glasses. To supervisors, he was the model employee, punctual, reliable, never causing problems. To passengers, he was simply part of the machinery, a face behind glass, announcing stations in accented English that carried hints of his childhood in Taiwan. His colleagues respected his competence, but knew nothing about his personal life. He lived alone in Flushing, Queens, no family anyone knew of. During breaks, he sat quietly reading newspapers in 3 languages, but never engaging in casual conversation. What they didn't know was that every day, as Robert guided his train through the tunnels, he was conducting a different kind of surveillance. His eyes weren't just watching for signals. They were mapping the tunnel system, noting structural weaknesses, cataloging emergency exits, running tactical assessments drilled into him decades before in a very different training program. Tuesday morning, 7:23 a.m. The 6th train pulled into Union Square precisely on schedule. The platform was crowded with commuters, students, service workers, confused tourists studying subway maps. "This is 14th Street, Union Square. Stand clear of the closing doors," Robert announced in his calm, professional voice. The familiar pneumatic hiss, the slight jerk as the train began moving toward 23rd Street. The bomb exploded at 7:26 a.m. between 23rd and 28th Street stations. The blast wasn't massive, a small improvised device designed for terror, not destruction. But in the confined tunnel space, effects were amplified. Train lights died. Emergency lighting cast everything in eerie red. The train lurched to an automatic stop as safety systems engaged. Screaming filled the cars. Not irritated complaints of delayed commuters, but primal fear of people trapped underground with unknown threat. In the operator's cab, Robert's training kicked in with mechanical precision. First, assess situation. Train stopped automatically, all cars on tracks, no visible structural damage. Second, secure the scene. He contacted Rail Control Center. "Control, this is Operator 4751. Explosion in tunnel between 23rd and 28th. Train stopped, conducting damage assessment." 4751, maintain position. Emergency services en route. Do not leave your operator position. Robert acknowledged the transmission, then did something that surprised everyone who knew him. He ignored the direct order. Opening the cab, Robert stepped into the first passenger car. 43 passengers in various states of panic and injury, some bleeding from flying glass, others hyperventilating from smoke filling the tunnel. Most simply terrified, crying, calling loved ones, demanding answers. Robert moved through the car with calm purpose, Not tentative steps of a subway operator out of his element, but measured advance of someone who had dealt with chaos before. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced with absolute authority, "we have experienced an explosion ahead. Emergency services are responding. I need everyone to remain calm and follow my instructions exactly." He began moving passenger to passenger, assessing injuries with systematic efficiency of battlefield medicine training. Businessman with scalp laceration, bleeding controlled with pressure. College student in shock, pulse rapid but stable. Elderly woman with chest pains, possible cardiac event, needed immediate attention. What Robert did next defied every protocol in the Metropolitan Transportation Authority handbook. After stabilizing the worst injuries inside the train, he opened the emergency exit and stepped into the tunnel. The acrid smell of explosives hung in the air, mixed with concrete dust and the metallic taste of fear. Robert moved toward the blast site with practiced stealth. His movements weren't those of a curious civilian or panicked transit worker. They were the controlled advance of someone who had cleared hostile territory before. The bomb had been crude but effective. Placed against the tunnel wall, it had damaged the electrical systems and created a debris field that would complicate evacuation. But Robert's trained eye saw something else. This wasn't random terrorism. The placement was too precise, designed to trap trains in this specific section. He examined the blast pattern with professional interest, noting the type of explosive residue, the direction of the blast, the calculated positioning. This was the work of someone with training. Meanwhile, in the train, passengers had noticed their operator's absence. Panic was building again until Robert's voice came over the intercom from somewhere in the tunnel. "This is your train operator. I am conducting a safety assessment of the tunnel ahead. Fire department and police are en route. Please remain in your seats and stay calm." Detective Maria Santos of the NYPD Transit Bureau was the first responder to reach the scene. Descending into the tunnel with her team, she expected to find chaos. Panicked passengers, overwhelmed transit workers, the usual mayhem of an emergency situation. Instead, she found something unprecedented. The train was organized. Injured passengers had been moved to the first car, where they were receiving basic medical care from other passengers under someone's direction. The most seriously injured had been prioritized. Everyone else was calm, quiet, waiting for instructions. "Where's the train operator?" Detective Santos called out. "He went to check the tunnel," replied a businessman with a bandaged head. "He said to tell police that the device was placed professionally and there might be secondary explosives." Santos felt her pulse quicken. No transit operator should know enough about explosives to make that kind of assessment. She found Robert 30 yards ahead of the train, crouched beside the blast site with a small flashlight, examining debris with the focused attention of a crime scene technician. "Sir, I need you to step away from there immediately," Santos commanded. Robert looked up calmly. "Detective, the primary device was C4, approximately 2 pounds, shaped charge designed to disable electrical systems without bringing down the tunnel. There's no evidence of secondary devices, but the placement suggests the bomber has military or law enforcement training." Santos stared at him. "Who are you?" "I'm Robert Chen, train operator, badge number 4751, he replied simply. "That's not what I mean," Detective Santos said. "How do you know about explosives?" "About blast patterns, about tactical placement." Robert stood slowly, brushing concrete dust from his uniform. For 25 years, he had successfully avoided this moment. But now, standing in a bombed subway tunnel with a police detective staring at him with growing recognition, the careful anonymity he had maintained was crumbling. "I had previous training," he said quietly. Santos pulled out her radio. "This is Detective Santos. I need a background check on Robert Chen, MTA Operator Badge 4751. Priority request." The response came back within minutes. Santos, that's interesting. Robert Chen, age 62, Taiwan national, became U.S. citizen in 1997. Prior to MTA employment, no official work history. Immigration records show entry to U.S. in 1998. What about military service? No U.S. military record. But Santos, there's a note in his file. FBI counterintelligence flagged him during citizenship application. Believed to be former Taiwan Special Forces, possibly military intelligence. Santos looked at Robert with new understanding. You were a soldier. I was many things, Robert replied. Now I operate trains. The way you handled this situation, the medical triage, the explosive analysis, the crowd control, that's not transit training. Robert nodded toward the train where passengers waited calmly. People were hurt. They needed help. By the time the FBI arrived, Robert had provided a complete tactical assessment of the scene. The bomber had likely conducted surveillance for weeks. The device placement indicated knowledge of subway electrical systems. The timing suggested familiarity with rush hour patterns. Special Agent Patricia Reeves took Robert aside. Mr. Chen, your observations have been remarkably accurate. Our preliminary analysis confirms everything you told Detective Santos. I'm glad to be helpful, Robert said. We'd like to talk to you about your background. Your immigration file suggests you had significant military experience before coming to the United States. Robert was quiet for a long moment. I served in the Republic of China Army, Special Operations. After democratization in Taiwan, some of us found it difficult to continue in our roles. I came here for a quieter life. What was your rank? Colonel, Military Intelligence Bureau, specialized in counter-terrorism and explosive ordnance disposal. Agent Reeves felt her eyebrows rise. The Military Intelligence Bureau was Taiwan's premier intelligence service. If Robert had been a colonel, he had been involved in operations far more complex than subway bombings. Why didn't you ever mention this to your employers? Because that man is dead, Robert said simply. I am a train operator now. The investigation that followed confirmed Robert's analysis in every detail. The bomber was arrested within 48 hours based on the profile Robert had provided. A disgruntled former transit maintenance worker with military training, exactly as Robert had predicted. The story should have ended there. But word of the subway operator who had single-handedly managed a terrorist incident began to spread through law enforcement circles. Agent Reeves returned to the Union Square station a week later. She found Robert in the operator's lounge, reading a Chinese-language newspaper during his break. Colonel Chen, she said quietly. Operator Chen, he corrected without looking up. We could use someone with your skills. Counter-terrorism, threat assessment, training new agents. The pay would be substantially better than MTA. Robert folded his newspaper and looked at her. Agent Reeves, for 25 years I have gotten up at the same time, taken the same train, followed the same route. It is peaceful, predictable. No one tries to kill me or the people I'm responsible for. But you could save more lives, prevent more attacks. I save lives every day, Robert interrupted. I transport 40,000 people safely through these tunnels each week. For 25 years, not one passenger has been injured on my train. That is service too. Agent Reeves studied his face. You're not curious about the bomber's motives, his connections, whether there might be others. Robert smiled slightly. Agent Reeves, I spent 30 years asking those questions. Now I announce stations and watch for signal changes. It's enough. 3 months later, Robert Chen was back to being invisible. The incident had been classified, the media reports vague. Most passengers who rode the 6 train never knew their operator had once been one of Asia's most skilled counter-terrorism experts. But sometimes, late at night, when the trains were less crowded, Detective Santos would take the 6th train home and nod to the figure behind the operator's glass. And Robert would nod back, two professionals who understood that the most important service often happened without recognition. Because that's what true warriors do. They don't seek the spotlight. They find their mission and serve it quietly, day after day, year after year, keeping people safe in ways those people will never know. So I ask you, have you ever met someone like Robert Chen? Someone whose daily job barely hinted at their extraordinary past? Someone who chose peace over recognition, service over glory? Share their story in the comments. Because at Hidden Warriors, we believe the most important guardians are often the most invisible ones. Thank you for watching. If this story reminded you to look twice at the quiet professionals around you, subscribe and help us honor the hidden protectors among us. We'll see you in the next story.